Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. I have an important message for you today. Um, it's a very important message. It cost me a lot. So if you are somebody who is interested in living life with truth and love and authenticity and real, but real authenticity, not in imitating authenticity, then just bear with me and look at what I'm saying. Okay? And if you really look at it and if you really see for yourself that that is how it works, you will save yourself a lot of hassle and like that soap will slip out of the grasp of the matrix and be free. Because right now, what you see in this, I suppose, the whole hive mind sphere of, and okay, before we go any further, I just want to draw the line somewhere. And the line that I'm drawing, the difference between the evil or good or matrix and holistics. To me, the evil is a type of ontological factor. And in my view, I consider a lot of people evil, like a surprising large number of people. Uh, there's a spectrum of how dark a person can be, but if there is a smidge of that and there's an act from that particular act is going to be evil. I consider it to be evil, and that's how I define it. The basis, the feeling in your heart, the feeling, you may also call energy or the spirit, right? Because I talked often about the structure of consciousness, and if you look at it, this model is really cool because you can look at it yourself and see if that's real. And if you find the basis of the feeling inside your heart kind of dark, right, then that's of course the call for the alchemy, to alchemize that feeling until there's a peaceful, blissful tone of basis of purity in your heart. Then all your actions all your emotions from there gonna stem as coherent. All your thoughts are gonna be right, and all your actions and the manifestations are going to be also right. It's really that important. If you plant the seed of the tree of life, you're going to have a fruit of life. If you plant the seed, the tree of knowledge, you're going to have the fruit of knowledge, which is poisonous. And in nature, you can see that some people are, some fruit are nourishing, and some fruit are basically can poison you. Okay, so, and it doesn't matter how much you control it on a mind level. All morality is about trying to control the evil in your heart. It doesn't matter. It's still gonna work in the wrong way. You're gonna try to say, "Well, I'm trying to do good," like and this is how this is most people are functioning on this level and learning how to be a good person, and yet the heart is dark, and they end up doing evil shit with good intentions. The most dangerous person that you can ever meet is the person who's subconsciously evil. They don't know what they're doing. And I've seen this in action. The person thinks it's doing good, but the result, and this is I think what's in the Bible said, that what kind of seed is in your heart is going to be determined by the fruit. I suppose it's something like that. I'm butchering this, but I'm sure it says that in the Bible, some version of that. Results. So this is why, like, don't even listen to what people are saying to you. Now I've learned this lesson. It was a very costly lesson to me, and I want to communicate it. I want to communicating. Excuse me. I want to communicate this to you, so there could be more clarity, and not to slip into the matrix by trying to do good, right? So another thing I want to say before we go any further into this, the way I define evil is, and I don't say that, when I use this word evil, I don't really mean that like, well, this person is evil and is about to murder somebody, the evil may be minor also, but it's a evil nonetheless. It's as long as there's that angst in your heart, there's nothing you can do about this. As long as there is this angst in your heart, and this is why I've met a lot of people in my last adventures, and I realized that oh my God, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, look at this. The idea and sometimes misunderstandings of the Neville Goddard teachings, for example, has this premise that everybody's you pushed out, right? Which is with the most dangerous message that's been ever sent by Neville Goddard, because the reason is dangerous because it's somebody who comes to this realization through their own alchemy and their own folding of the mind, which reveals through that alchemy, through these positive emotions, the folding of the mind changes and it reveals that truth to you. You arrive it naturally to that realization, right? And when you arrive at naturally to this realization, you understand how it works. But if you communicate that to somebody and have not made that journey, they create a belief system in their mind, and then they think that they are puppet masters, and they misunderstand this completely, which I have as well. And it goes something like this. It is very obvious and prevalent in people in relationships trying to manifest a specific person. That is an black magic, and it's evil to try to control a specific person. That is going into the ego manner and the ego way and the black magic, and it's very dangerous. First of all, if you are messing with somebody who is following the path of truth, everything's going to be returned to sender. And you if you're trying to love spell somebody, you are the one going to feel that effect. If you're trying to somebody to be obsessed with you, you are going to get obsessed with that person. This is the danger when are you trying to play with this game. Okay, very dangerous belief system to have, very dangerous to you, for you and all these people. This is why people don't want to hear this, but I've been saying, and I don't care if people unsubscribe this, but they unsubscribe from my channel because they don't want to hear this, because I'm basically spanking them in the midst of ego tantrum and saying that's not the way. Yes, you do deserve everything that your soul desires, but you're going about it in the wrong way. Slap hat. The slap hat from Key and Peele. That's a cool one. If you've never seen it, check it out. Slap hat from the Key and Peele. Anyway, let's go back. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, now, when you are trying to impose some reality through your imagination on a specific person, damn, that you are engaging in the black magic. This is why everything I'm making into black and white. Why am I doing this? Because it's metaphysically and physically true. The feeling can only be flowing in a coherent way, in coherent direction, or incoherent way, in coherent direction. It can't be both. It's either something coherent or incoherent. And this is basically what is in your soul, what is in your heart, from which feeling you're doing everything. So if you still have a hole in your heart and pain in your heart, and you want to get that person to fix that feeling, you're going to be engaged in the black magic. Whether you have the best intentions and you say, well, I'm going to love that person or whatever, you're still engaging in the black magic, and you're skipping the most important part. And that is, first of all, putting attention on that negative feeling that is there in your heart and alchemizing that. And all you gotta do is just place attention there and give it attention. The negative feeling is screaming for attention. That's all it's doing. It's saying, please look at me here, right here. You want love? Right here, right here. This is where like that discomfort is. It doesn't matter of anything, other belief systems. People say, well, oh, it's because of this, it's because I wasn't loved when I was a kid, whatever. None of this, no one ever got freed from analyzing. This is why the psychology is an evil science. Never freed anybody. Because you don't need to understand where it's coming from or like what it's about, because that's just the consequences of that feeling. Is so simple. And whatever comes from that basis of the feeling is just like from that seed. If you plant a poisonous seed, there's going to be poisonous fruit. It doesn't matter how much you love the tree, the fruit is going to be poisonous. Do you understand how important it is to live through your soul? Yes, your desires will be fulfilled, but look at how they're going to be fulfilled. You say, well, how am I going to have a loving partner and happy marriage if I'm not going to get that specific person? First of all, what Neville also was teaching to students is saying like, hey, do you want that specific person or do you want to be happily married? Because that is not necessarily the same thing. Very often they're very two different things. And if you realize that like my soul desire is to be happily married, that's my soul desire, that's what I want, and my ego tantrum is trying to make one specific person to be that. Okay, so if you go through your soul desire and you place attention on that feeling, that negative feeling that is there, that's where you're going to find that love feeling, which is going to be put into your reality, in your emotions, in your thought patterns, everything. What you're creating in that particular moment is, if you will, an essence and a vibration of that person that matches you. That's what you're doing. And it's almost like you're creating the aura around you, right? That is doing the work for you and seeing who deserves, if you will, to match that vibration that you've been manifesting, right? And when you have manifested that feeling, first of all, you stop looking for it in other people. You still want it for the person, for that feeling to be in the form of the person. But at this point, you do not intervene in a continuous process of what kind of fruit is going to be. Why are you not doing this? Because it's not up to you. At this point, who is going to be playing that role that you created? The role is very important. It's going to be selected by the universe, if you will, by the higher capacities of your consciousness. Now, by logical, not by a lower mind, or logical capacities. right? And the quality that you've created, the feelings, the sensations, mentioning everything, the quality that you've created, you don't know who that person is going to be. And you got to be okay just to be with that aura that you've created, and let the universe to fit somebody for you. Now, this way, you are not a puppet master, but the truth is still that whatever the essence, what kind of energy, the vibration that you've created around you is going to be played by somebody in a physical form, right? But you're not going to do is you're not going to say, well, I want this person or that person. It's going to be fitted for you by the universe, and it's going to be fitted in the way that you can't even possibly like, it's better than you've imagined. So the universe really wants this for you. It's truth. But if you intervene with your logical mind, your lower mind, and try to control it, you're messing it up what the universe is trying to bring it to you. Okay? This is what I've realized, that when you're manifesting this relationship or any role that the person needs to play in your business, in your personal life, all these roles that your soul desire are there for you, and you deserve them, and in the way that you want to be treated, you deserve all that. But all you can do is to create these roles in your life and let the universe fit that in. You cannot make that role of a friend to force this on a specific person. You can't do this. In fact, if you do this, it's a type of black magic. Okay? And so these roles are going to be filled by the right person. Okay? Because they're going to have to fit exactly what you've manifested and the quality that you've manifested, right? If you want a specific person for a specific job, specific person, well, if you need a person to do a job really well and to act in a certain way, and maybe even read your mind sometimes when you're trying to communicate things, for example, so there's no miscommunication, or maybe you're frustrated when people are not listening to you when you're trying to create something. Then you say, all right, I want a person who does listen to me. I want a person who understands me from the half a sentence, effortless. But you cannot insist that specific person to be that. You see, this is what I want, and you let the universe fit that person in for that specific role. Okay? Because this idea that Neville Goddard was talking about is like, well, you just imagine a person treating you in a different way. It doesn't really change the essence of the person. It is a temporary override. That's why it's so important to understand. It's a temporary override. It's like if you're trying to get somewhere and this one person is kind of difficult, but you don't have to change the person entirely to get something done. You can imagine something, well, I want this person to do this, to give me a break so I can move on. And so the person becomes not a problem. And sure enough, the person will do that. But that doesn't mean that it's very different if you want a person who can be like in your relationship and have that quality, because the person might have been done like something good that serves you right, because you've just imagined that everything's going to be all right, but it did not change the essence of the person. You could make a really evil person to do something right by you in a momentary way, and that's it, and you move on, because what you ask the universe is, I'm trying to accomplish this vision, this task, this dream, and I want this person to collaborate with me because that is my goal. And then this is temporary collaboration that takes place. Okay, but you have not tried to place that person into the role that you need them to play. Trying to change the essence of the person. Does that make sense? It really is like this. You create this auric field which says, that's the type of connection that I feel with this person. This is the type of relationship that it's in this field, and all of these parameters that you've created, right? Because your soul wants that and you deserve that. And then somebody comes in and fills in that role for you. Okay? It may also come in a temporary way. They just come in because, when you're asking for something big, the universe doesn't want to kind of leave you hanging in the meantime. So it brings, whatever you want temporarily through people that are coming in your life in a fleeting manner, while, the real person that may take that role on more long-term basis is being brewed for you. Okay. So this is the difference. Again, it's quite simple actually. If you do the alchemy, everything is going to be white magic. If you don't do it, everything's going to be black magic. And I'm also, by saying this, I know this because I've done this and I thought that that is right. It's not right. It creates a lot of problems. And once I realized this, I had like a huge relief, and I realized that, okay, I'm not trying to be a puppet master here. People, it's almost like they fit into this parameters that you've created, or they don't, and that's it. And that is how you can have people and have relationships with people that are kind of harmonious and resonant and not continuously conflict based. Because you say like, well, I want a harmonious relationship in this particular field of my life. Okay, you gotta let the universe select somebody for that, and it'll be all right. It will work out. And there, sure, you can do like a small overrides sometimes with your imagination, but as long as, like I said, you're not doing it out of lack, you can do a small type of things that you're playing with your imagination. By playing with your imagination, it's like, it is actually quite simple, but it may seem complicated, but it's actually quite simple. It is whether you're using your mind as a primary tool of manifestation or whether you're using your soul as a primary tool of manifestation. That's one way of saying it. And you manifest with your soul, you manifest with your heart first. So then whatever is going to happen is going to happen in a right, coherent way that's going to be clicking in the heart. And then you can play with the mind once it's right for you. Okay? The mind is secondary, soul is primary, mind is secondary, and your body is tertiary. This is just how it works. This is direction of the energy, coherent energy flow. So when I see this belief systems, and I don't know why sometimes, like, I'm making these videos on YouTube, but Europe is a dangerous place full of belief systems. And you know, belief systems seem to have algorithm uh, favors a belief system. It's just like what is it? What is the most popular thing? You'll see it is something about ideology, something about politics, something about drama. It's always about these triggering belief system conflict based things. So you can see that it's just like YouTube is infested with demons, basically. You know, let's just be honest about it. And the shit that they're normalizing, it's fucking insane. I don't want to even mention names, but like, um, you can probably put two and two together. But the level of Babylon whores that are uh, insanely popular, and the level of these 666 beasts that are insanely popular is crazy. Now, of course, there are some people that are the people of reason trying to be reasonable in the midst of this belief system battles. And it's difficult not to slip into the belief system themselves. But there are people who are somehow, some way, they are anchored to the truth. But there you go. You know, this is why I said um, the way you're gonna create the algorithm. Excuse me. The way you're gonna create the algorithm, most of the system is gonna work in this way. This is why this algorithm that's been created by YouTube. Original, of course, it wasn't about this, and you know, Facebook, Instagram, all these algorithms are created to fuck you up. Um, they're not necessary. You know, a lot of it can be replaced with a simple website and normal basic tools, applications. It is absolutely not necessary for you to have a very harmonious and happy life and very social life, that you're connected with people in a more intimate and a personal way, and not have your balls hanging out for everybody to see. In fact, like anybody who's doing this, they don't realize that they think that, well, they're gonna get value out of this, but they're devaluing it. They're devaluing it. You have to understand, it's devaluing it. You know. Ew. Anyway. And you know what I'm saying? Um, some people who see this as like just an innocent fun and play are going to be caught by how not very innocent this is, and how demonic it is, and how dark it gets. Then maybe when they realize that and say, oh my god, this is, you know, it's not just an app, and it's not just like, you know, it's what I'm trying to say. Like, I've talked about this, but there's going to be this realization when any person who still has any kind of connection with their soul. Okay, so all right, so this message is about this specific thing, black and white. And you either do black magic or you do white magic. And my advice is never be engaged with the black magic. And sometimes you can do, like I said, like the inadvertent black magic. You don't have to do sacrificial rituals and all these other nonsenses to be engaged in black magic. It's all about whether you're going to be using your mind to manifest something with a lack in your heart. That's black magic right there. And you are a type of vampire, actually. In fact, that's the definition of vampire, because you don't have your own energy, and you're gonna have to steal it from somebody else, and you use magic to do so. And I have to say something, that what I'm saying, this is part of this hive mind. You know, you can feel this hive mind even, and you have to be sharp too, because I realized sometimes the leniency that I had about this and say, well, that's just, it's all right. Well, people do it, like it's just all right. I had this leniency about it, and even consider this as normal, and entertain these types of thoughts. I realized how fucked up that was, and how it's not all right. This idea that humans are animals and they're supposed to be just like fucking each other, and it's a horrible idea. This is of course a Babylonian idea. Humans are not intrinsically like that. We are soul beings. We have in the human body, but our soul is not animal soul, right? It becomes animal soul if the ego is a type of animal. When your body wants to eat something, is to sustain the body. When the ego wants to eat something, is to sustain this pain body. You see. And to defend, the wisdom is the best defense against this. And the more wisdom you gain through alchemizing everything, that every time somebody sends something negative towards me is a type of way for me to alchemize that and to create that specific type of arrangement to defend against that. And I always win. And anybody who sends any kind of negativity towards me, it reflects back at them. And I don't have to wish anything bad upon them. I just wish good for my soul. And they have to understand that there are consequences of what they're doing. The karma is real. And even though karma may appear false, because if your ego has a tendency to get away with it for some time, until until you're messing with somebody who you should never messed with, then the karma hits back real hard. And not only that, it hits not only that particular thing, that what you did, what you tried to do through the manipulation of that person, it also takes everything that you've done in the past, and it creates what people call tower moments. And there's a cascade of bad luck in your life until you're going to fucking learn the lesson. It's not with your mind, but until you're going to let go of your ego and place the attention where attention is due to be placed. Okay? So, as fun and as functional Neville Goddard teachings was, at this particular time, it's not exactly applicable, because what we're dealing with is exorcisms, not the manifestations of little things, but in order to fulfill your soul desire, you cannot do this anymore without a certain type of exorcism, which is what the exorcism is to me. Is, in the movies they dramatize that, but to me the exorcism is whenever the default distortion in your soul has been changed, corrected for this distorted mirror that is this reality. You have to correct for that distortion. I'm almost sure that this is exactly what's going on, that your soul, the structure of your soul, is a correcting mechanism for the shadow world that we're in. The matrix is a shadow world, and in order for us to be in this shadow world and yet connected to the infinite, we have to build a certain geometrical structure in your soul that still maintains you in the infinite while you are in the temporal. And I also said before that I think that these are white pearl, I sometimes use this phrase, or the translucent crystal, or the diamond. And I'm using these terms because this is what determines a masculine soul and a feminine soul. And I know some people say, well, ultimately it's either, it's kind of both, isn't it? Like, The bothness comes in the importance of your soul, if you are a man, to be masculine is utmost, because you are taking fully the half of that role that you meant to be played, and therefore this other like compatible role is being filled there for you, and so you're playing this masculine role the best way you can possibly play. And so you have a masculine soul, and that will be filled with the feminine soul. And in that moment, there is unity, right? You're not trying to be masculine and feminine in one. That's not how it works. Ultimately, yes, but then there's another there that has to be there, right? And you can say, well, those two together, two souls together, create one monad, one whole. Right, that's how it works. So you're not trying to be half-half, right? You see what I'm trying to say? This is where I disagree with this idea of hermaphrodite. It is ultimately in the certain, from the perspective of the seventh dimension, may be true, but as soon as you go into the sixth and the fifth, immediately you have to polarize to either masculine or feminine, because the game begins of the duality, and duality says, okay, there's going to be masculine, there's going to be feminine at the soul level. How do I know this? Because the energy that you carry is very distinct, and you can carry a masculine type of energy, and your aura and your energy field, which is a feeling, don't get scared with this word aura or the energy. It's a feeling. And if anybody who has a little bit of openness in their heart understand the world of feelings, very real, they're not abstract at all. But the person who has a closed heart would not understand the feeling. They would think it's a sensation or emotion, which is not that. The feeling is not an emotion, and it's not a sensation. The feeling is almost like the organ on the instrument which creates the emotions. And then in the mind, there's also 7 levels of meaning, or 7 levels of patterning, which create thoughts. And then in the body, there's 7 senses that creates the 7 types of sensations, the 777, which is the 777 and plus ultimate 0, because there's one thing that is the whole, which is the spirit. Then the soul, there's 7 layers immediately happens. Why? Because it's a toroidal field. It has 7 layers. Then that splits again and creates the mind and the body, and has 777. And in total, you get 21, plus the spirit world is 22. The 0 or the full in the major arcana in the tarot cards. It's the structure of consciousness. Not a function, but a structure. And then you have 56, which is obviously a function, and in the soul, in the mind, in the body, there's 56. That number is very important. Why is 56? It's because there's 7 in the soul. There's 7 types of feelings, 7 colors. Each one has a polarization towards feminine or masculine, and then also it has a polarization towards 4 elements: water, earth, air, fire. So therefore it creates 4, 2, and 7. And then you do the math and you realize that there are 56 possible permutations, or if notes, if you will, of that instrument. If 7 feelings are the strings, and what they create out of that, that's the 56 types of emotions that create. And there could be 56 coherent emotions and 56 incoherent emotions. And it all depends on how these energies relate to each other. Okay? It's an instrument. The soul is an instrument, and we can play it with our attention. The mind is an instrument, and we can play it with our intention. And the body is an instrument which we can play it with action. And I said before, these are three joysticks of life which you are in total control. It is not trying to control the physical reality, but you're actually in control of the reality itself. Because you're not trying to control the outcome. Rather, you're not controlling, if the fruit is an apple, you're not trying to make it into an orange. That is what we use usually the word control for that, because that is idiotic. You can do it somehow, but it's going to cost you so much, and so much, you might as well just plant a new fucking tree from new seed, and you're going to get an orange tree. So whether you like this word control or not, there is absolutely this real control of your life. But it doesn't make you controlling, it makes you enjoying life, because you know how life works. And you're not even mad about the matrix. You know that what it is. You don't take things personal anymore, because that's just one of the big things that I have realized, that, man, it was very difficult for me to not to take things personal. And realization that nothing is personal in this game of life, in this matrix, that nothing is personal. And so, yeah, kind of chew on that for a little bit to see what that takes you, if nothing is personal. You may say, well, what about, connecting with somebody? That's kind of personal. Yeah, it's intimate, but it's not personal. I mean, I don't want to be extreme with these words, because language can be tricky like that, but there's a certain type of meaning which I'm trying to communicate here, that what we consider to be personal, for example, somebody does something to you, okay, and you take it personal. It wasn't personal. It's a game. It was there for a specific reason. If you know how to play it, you would not get upset about it, or you get upset about it and you alchemize all that and realize and see, okay, that's what it was there. All right. And so you play the game, not taking anything personal. I mean, sure, like, the only thing that's personal, if you say, if you will, love, that's the only thing that's personal, but love can never be negative. That's why the only thing that's worth considering personal is feels so good that it does not create any problems in your life. Let's just say that. So don't take anything negative personally. A truly negative, and not anyway. Okay. Well, hopefully I'm communicating this well enough. I'm gonna say it how it is. And listen, maybe that the person that you wanted to play that role for you, maybe it is that person. But you still have to let the universe to put that person, and you still have to be okay with somebody else being put in that place. Okay? Maybe you're right that it is your person, but you got to let the universe do that trick, do that selection. You see what I'm trying to say? Don't try to play this game, because look, I know this dark side, and because I feel everything, and I know what's going on, and I know what people are doing. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is hidden in a big scheme of things, in this field of Akash. Nothing is hidden. You have to understand. No matter how much you think that this is just like you and nobody knows what you, nothing is hidden. Sometimes people say like a God sees everything, but it's just like almost lame way of saying that everything is visible. But the thing is that it's a kind of relief that there's nothing can be hidden, and everything can be okay and be translucent, because nobody else, um, like, when you're translucent and somebody else is translucent, it's not a problem. It's when you're trying to hide that fact from somebody else, then that's only then a problem. But when it's like, oh, that's just the way it is, all right then. So there's no guilt. You're not trying to hide anything, and it's all right, you know. And even like if you've done something bad in the past, and you have like a guilt about it, and we have not done that through the level of awareness that we have right now. Therefore, it was in a way kind of just a dumb and innocent thing. Well, innocent maybe not be a good, but naive thing to do. But nobody's blaming you for that, because anybody with sufficient level of consciousness sees that you couldn't have done it any other way, and that if you had sufficient awareness, you wouldn't have done it. And because you didn't, you were in the midst of the program that took you to do that thing. So this is why there's no actual blame, you understand? There's no actual intentional evil, if you will. No person is conscious or aware who does like an evil act. The only person who, or the only entity that can be blamed for that is whoever wrote the program. You can say, because that person wrote the program, everybody became a victim of that, or person, I shouldn't say person, entity. So you can blame an architect of the matrix, or architects of the matrix, but you can't blame them because you ask them to create this matrix. These are actual souls. These are actual architectural entities that they built this matrix to challenge you, to get you lost in it, so you can find yourself back in again. We immerse ourselves, fell in the world of shadows, in order for us to realize that we can carry our own light in the darkest places. And like I mentioned before, this is the game that we're playing. We're trying to be an infinite in a temporal reality. Another way of saying it, we're trying to be an immortal soul or infinite soul. This is what sometimes they use in the alchemy and elixir of life, and like, well, you become immortal. It's not about the body becoming immortal. It is becoming an soul being that is eternal. And we are not by default individual and eternal. By default, we may be eternal, but we're not individual. But to become an individual and eternal, that's a big deal. And this is the game that we're playing here. This is the real reason the Matrix was built, and this is the real challenge that is there for us to take. And so you can see, you can't blame anybody. The only thing that the first thing that this reality is asking for you, and if you want to stop playing these bullshit ass games and these manipulative manifestations that became so popular and so evil and rancid, is just to place your attention with that thing that is asking you to do this, asking you to manifest this. Like, have you placed your attention there? This is where you begin. In fact, spoiler alert, all of your attention always belongs to that awareness, that essence of you. That's your attention is logos. And I'm not talking about, where you put your eyes. I'm talking about, what I'm talking about. Where you place your attention in your heart, in your essence. There's a type of attention there. Like, I can talk to you, excuse me, pay my visual attention on the screen, but my heart attention is not on the screen. I could do that too, but then I would get sort of lost in it. You see what I'm trying to say? This is why, like, when you relate to somebody else, you don't relate from the outside, because then it just becomes kind of mind grasping something. You relate through your heart. This is where they really are. You see their picture, right? But you cannot feel them. You cannot know them because they're not there. They're right here. This is where you can feel them. That's how you really get to know the person, not putting attention on there, because that's just like sensory things. That's not who they are. But right here, you can. So it's always about this. It's always about placing attention there. It's always, this is how you get to know who they are. You see them, and some people don't want to be seen, and some people like to be seen, and because that's, it's just like living life through your heart, through your soul. And this is a very, very important thing to understand. That's where it begins. If you do not begin through that, and you're still in the mind, and which I was also stuck into this particular thing, this is why I realized how much this fascination with the spiritual world, without alchemy, all bad news bears, all just super ego development, all of this nonsense in these, because it's still functioning on the imaginary level. And it's fascinating because people even can imagine that there's Kundalini is rising. People can, imagine colors and all this, and it's still just an imaginary level, and they have experiences, yet the heart is still dark. And so that's just develops a type of ego. And now it's sad news. A lot of people went that way, and they never really gone through the eye of the needle to see the real thing. Nobody ever risen Kundalini with intention. It was, if they did, it was imaginary. It was not real. And you say, well, there's a real experiences. I felt it and all this. Like, no. You had an experience, but what you have been left as just a general sense of right nowness. Is it just a memory now? Because if it's just a memory, then it's not it. But if you have like this constant, never even radiation of peace and bliss, then it was real. Because this is not an experience, it's a constant field of energy that it never leaves you. And it doesn't happen through the intention of trying to poke the snake with a stick. It's such an abomination to see these people jumping on their asses and trying to raise the Kundalini, which is, it's a total and darkest shit that you can do. It has no respect for that energy. You cannot raise it with poking with a stick. It happens on its own, based on what kind of heart you have. So be concerned with the quality of your heart. And it's not a work that you gotta get to it. It starts immediately when you place your attention there. You start living on this edge of life, and it's happening. You're not getting anywhere. There's nowhere to get. You are now living. And your heart becomes arranged in a proper way. And if you're still living life, because it's not over, so there's something that is still not coherent is going to be made coherent, but everything that's already made coherent inside of you fills up with that energy. And so there's growing of this, and it fills up exactly as you need it for that particular time of what you're living. You cannot make it more, you cannot make it less. You cannot speed it up, you cannot slow it down. It's exactly as much as is necessary in response to the quality of your heart, which is always ideal when that attention and that awareness merges into this in between kind of field, right? So do you see how all of this is bollocks, and it happens naturally and spontaneously, and the only thing you got to do is just to live at the edge of life and place attention where the attention is due to be placed. Only then you can play with your intention, which is the mind now. Because something very important happens. When these things become arranged in your soul in the right way, when I say things, a certain type of geometrical structures that create a type of vibration, which is a feeling, and these feelings, these types of vibrations create a type of emanation, which is emotion. And now, when the emotions start rising in a coherent way, it changes your mind, it rearranges your mind. And the patterns that were there, which you call belief systems, are rearranged and they're made more fluid. And now they're not belief systems, they're truths. And from there, thoughts stem. There are, we haven't talked a lot about this, the 7 levels of the mind, because there's 7 ways of thinking. And that explains, for example, when you're in an altered state of consciousness and you see things differently, like when you're 6th to the 7th, it's like a DMT dimension. It explains that also. That's a pure creative dimension. Then there's like, the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, and the 1st, and each one of them has a specific role. Because there could be like some logical thinking that's going on. There could be like an emotional thinking that's going on, right? So there's obviously unarguable, or there's imagination. When you imagine, is a type of thought as well, but it's not symbol, right? It's not letters, right? You see, there's many ways, there's many layers of the mind, and each one has its own capacity to do. And there are 7 of them. And to shorten this video because it's already too long, I'm not going to talk about this because I'm also, frankly, are investigating this and trying to understand of what the specific level or layer of the mind is in charge of. I'm more familiar with the feelings and emotions, but now I'm also going to go into the mind and I'm going to see what's going on there. But this is something new to me that I'm about to investigate. And I want to have like the most simple model that is observable in nature, in physics, that can, you see what I'm trying to say, very symmetrical, self-similar, and any other these elegant factors that has to be there to explain this holographic reality in a most simple way that the child could understand. If the child cannot understand this is not an elegant model. And so that's what I'm trying to create, But anyway, child or woman, it's almost the same thing. Just busting your lady balls. Chill. Anyway, what was I saying? Right, okay. And then it goes into the sensations, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about sensations. Senses. There's 7 senses, and I talked about most of them. And I also want to mention the 7th layer of the body, or 7th layer of the mind, or 7th layer of the soul, as a specific type of capacity. It encompasses all of the 6 ones, but it also functions almost come by itself. It's like synesthetic, like the seventh sense of the body. This is why it's not often talked about, because it encompasses all of the senses. And it's like it is a state, and you can be, when you are sensing your world with all of the senses combined, when you're sensing the world with the seventh sense, if you will, all of the senses are combined, and it's a very immersive, very type of ecstatic experience of the senses. I think babies the way experience the world, because they still have that, seventh sense going on. And so you are aware of everything at once. And sometimes, they in the folklore, they're using this thing, but it's real. The same thing with the seventh level of the mind. It encompasses all the lower levels of the mind. And this is why, by living in a seventh layer of your soul, seventh layer of the mind, and seventh layer of the body, becomes a type of, kind of graduate way of living, because everything is automatically managed. You don't have to micromanage each one. In the Lord of the Rings, they said one ring to rule them all, and that ring is putting attention on that thing that is the source of all of your feelings. Having attention there makes sure that all of your senses, or all of your feelings, are made coherent. That's the only thing. If you get this, everything else will fall into place. This is what Jesus said, the kingdom of God. It's just placing your attention where it's the most off type of feeling in your system, and moving between that attention and awareness of the rest. This is again what the Icarus message was. What did the Icarus was instructed? Don't fly too close to the sun, and not too close to the water, right? That's a alchemy game. It's a type of attention and awareness play, the focus. You don't want to go too way to attention, because that's just like a burning. You gotta be there, attentive of that, and attentive of that openness, or surrender, and courage. This is the true meaning of the surrender of courage in your heart. And this is almost like a type of muscle, I'm almost sure that there is a type of muscle, but it's a type of muscle that just like your eye muscle, right? Like to be able to focus on something and be aware of the periphery at the same time, you can train yourself, right? And there is some muscle that's functioning there in your eyeball, but your heart is functioning like this as well. So it is a type of muscle, and you can be really buffed up in your heart. You see? And this is real. This is who we truly are. The soul is who we are. And sometimes people say, well, I like your energy, or whatnot. What they're really trying to say is that they love you. That's what they're trying to say. Because the energy is you. It's not something that what you do. This is something you emanate. And we all have that specific imprint and that energy. I have mine, you have yours, everybody have theirs, and it's unique. And it's all like, we're all like flavors of ice cream, and it mixes. This is what it is. And sometimes I say that a lot of people kind of obsessed, and I was too, maybe even still am, and I don't want to be this way, but about like their ideal partner, right? And so why this specific or I mean, this specific soul, not a person, but soul, fits you perfectly? Well, it's because of the specific vibration, specific signature of your soul. That's why. And if the person does not carry that signature, there's nothing you can do about it. Right? And sometimes, if the ego is hiding what's there in your soul, that also the person will not carry. Like if you meet, you know, the ego hides the imprint, right? All of that. And you can still kind of see what's behind that. But for the person to really like be comfortable with being completely counter naked and not afraid that, anyway, I just digress right now. Okay, so there you go. Cut down on the black magic. See things differently. And I don't want to say too much about this because I've already said so much, but I was very specific in describing of how you have to come up with this. Like, we all have, just like our souls are unique, we have minds that are unique. And some of us have more capacity to use more, like, fourth, the fifth, the second, the first level, whatever. And they all can be polarized as well, masculine or feminine. This is what makes somebody think in a feminine way or a masculine way, you see. um and it also, that's all. See what I'm trying to say? This permeates everything, and it doesn't make anything. Oh my gosh, I hope everything just is more clear than before you start watching this video. Okay, what to do with this, all this normalization of the Babylon? Nothing. Use it as a manure, because really the only thing that you can do is to make your world awesome, and it's going to be in a contrast, almost like a bubble in this matrix world. That's the only thing that you can do, and other people can also do this, and so these bubbles can connect and sort of create, and only like this the matrix could be overtaken. But the only reason, it's almost like thanks to the matrix that it is so, just like thanks to the caterpillar cells that butterfly was born. That is correct way of playing this game of life. That is right simulation. Another thing I want to say is that all these concerns and worries about, like, well, what if the world's gonna go to shit? Or like, look, like, if you live at this cutting edge and your attention is always in the right place, and you just engage more in being attentive of the essence of the feeling, the one ring that rules them all, it's impossible. It's impossible for that's the secret. It can get to the thing is like, oh, it's about go kind of horribly roll, and it's something awesome is gonna happen out of this. That is what gives you peace. The peace that everything's gonna be all right, and no matter what anybody's gonna say in the world, that like the nuclear war or whatever, like whatever the fuck, it's always gonna be all right if as long as you live at the edge of life, and this life and death flux in your soul, in your heart. Everything is going to be all right. small scale or the big scale, but everything's going to be all right. Look, this game can bust your balls, of course, and it really is busting your balls until you learn how to play it, and it's all right. But the ultimate existence is pure awesomeness, love, and bliss, and that's what is the basis of the existence, right? As per the essence, nobody would create something that is real that is of suffering. That's the existence, right? And so if you have that capacity to understand that the basis of everything is peace and bliss, then you can chill your balls and begin playing the game of life the way it's supposed to be played. Not through belief systems, nothing. You see what I'm trying to say? You begin at the start of it and say, all right, I want, once you start placing attention there, it may take some time for you to get to the point where you no longer need to place attention there. It's gonna kind of automatic. Because, if you've been not doing this and neglecting this, you're gonna have to take care of it for some time. Like for me, for example, I don't know, it's like since it turned on so strongly, I should say maybe 2 years, but only now recently I'm sort of getting a hang of this thing, and that I would consider still quite fast. But I can absolutely see how that thing gets solidified and becomes effortless to live at the edge of life, because my attention sometimes can be straight away from it. But to have faith that just bring it back and it's going to be all right. Just bring it back and it's going to be all right. Again, I'm not talking about the mind. Don't think that it's a practice or anything that you got to do. You can move around, do cooking, and still, it's a soul capacity. It's not a mind capacity. And if you've never used that muscle, then maybe it's kind of weird. Because mind can only move. It's always in motion. It cannot be still. But your soul can. You start with that. It's not a practice. It's not a method. I can use my mind at the same time being attentive of that feeling. And when that feeling is quite blissful and peaceful, it's very easy to be attentive of this, because why would you not be attentive of this? This is where all the juice of life is. Okay. Dude, and your thoughts will change. The emotions will change. You'll see things clearly. The conflict's gonna go away. Just do it. Okay. And you don't even need to go that deep. It's a very simple thing. And I see sometimes in people that when it's time to move your attention in the right place and whatever, there's this nervousness, and but it's all right. It's just like sometimes getting in a cold water, and at first like but if you just open up to it, you're like, it's actually sweet. This is why I want to take cold showers in the morning. Of course, there's a contrast. There's the sun, and there's immediately the cold water right under the ground, which is freezing. When that contrast, I'm just like poof, completely face that. And if I would close off of it, then I would be not comfortable. But because you just meet it with every single sensory experience that it's coming at me, there's all there is left is sweetness. And so that also helps me to understand how with my attention I can face the things that for the mind seems to be impossible or painful or stuff like that. And I've mentioned in the previous videos, like I mentioned like unimaginable pain and unimaginable pressure, and I use these words, and it's not to say that to scare you, but it's to say that that thing that mind can't even comprehend, it's piece of cake for the soul. It's not really unimaginable pain. That's bliss. It's not really unimaginable pressure. That's peace. That's what's really there. But mind cannot see this. It interprets that as such. Because mind is not the tool to use to interpret the feelings. Mind's supposed to be molded by the feelings, not regulate them. It's the mind is a servant of the feeling. Right? Of course, it already is. If the negative emotion is happening, what kind of thoughts you're going to have? Negative thoughts, stupid thoughts. The fruit is going to be fucked up. Wrong thought. It came from the wrong emotion because there was, at the basis, there's a wrong feeling. That's it. Okay? That's enough for today. Hopefully you enjoyed my message. Peace. And I'll see you in the next one.